In the biting winds of November 1700, on the frozen plains of Estonia, a scene of impossible odds unfolds. A blizzard, a maelstrom of white fury, rages across the land, cloaking everything in a shroud of impenetrable snow. Trapped within this frozen hell are 8,000 weary Swedes, facing a force 4 times their number. 40,000 Russians, entrenched and waiting, believe their victory is assured. They are besieging the fortress of Narva, confident that the Swedish relief army is too small, too exhausted, too late. But they have not accounted for the will of one man, the young King of Sweden, Charles XII. This is not just a battle, it is a crucible, a moment that will forge legends and alter the course of empires. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider subscribing for more historical deep dives. The dawn of the 18th century saw the Baltic Sea as the heart of a rising Swedish empire. For a century, its armies had been the terror of Europe, but its dominance had created a powerful coalition of rivals: Denmark, Norway, Saxony, Poland, Lithuania, and the vast awakening giant of Tsarist Russia, all eager to dismantle Sweden's power. This was the Great Northern War. At the head of the Swedish Empire stood a king barely out of his teens, Charles XII. Dismissed by his enemies as an inexperienced boy, Charles was anything but. He was a military prodigy, forged in the Lutheran warrior king tradition, possessing an iron will and a tactical brilliance that bordered on reckless genius. Having already swiftly knocked Denmark out of the war, he now turned his attention east, where Tsar Peter the Great was leading his massive army against the Swedish bastion of Narva. As the Swedish army arrived, the conditions were apocalyptic. A relentless snowstorm had descended, plunging visibility to near zero. The cold was a physical enemy, gnawing at the soldiers, freezing muskets, and turning the ground into a treacherous mix of ice and mud. The Swedes, poorly supplied and having marched through the unforgiving autumn landscape, were at the limits of their endurance. Within the Russian camp, a sense of overconfidence prevailed. Their siege lines were extensive, a 9-kilometer arc of trenches, earthworks, and redoubts designed to starve Narva into submission while repelling any relief force. The Russian commander, Duke Charles Eugène de Croix, a foreign mercenary, looked upon the blizzard and the paltry Swedish numbers and felt secure. He believed no sane commander would dare attack in such conditions. But Charles was no ordinary commander. He saw the storm not as a hindrance, but as an opportunity, a divine sign. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, on the 30th of November, the wind shifted. The blizzard, which had been blowing in the Swedes' faces, now turned, driving the blinding snow directly into the eyes of the Russian defenders. It was the moment Charles had been waiting for. The order was given. 2 great columns of Swedish infantry, the iconic Caroleans in their dark blue coats and yellow facings, advanced toward the Russian lines. They were specters emerging from the whiteout, their approach masked by the howling wind and swirling snow. The Russians, blinded and disoriented, could barely see the enemy until they were almost upon them. The Swedish assault was a thunderclap. With drums beating a steady, unnerving rhythm, the Caroleans marched forward with disciplined fury. They held their fire until they were mere paces from the Russian earthworks. Then a single devastating volley crashed through the storm, followed by the chilling order, "Po! Charge!" With bayonets fixed, they surged over the ramparts. What followed was brutal close-quarters combat. The narrow confines of the trenches became a slaughterhouse of smoke, steel, and screams. The Caroleans, masters of the bayonet, fought with a cold, terrifying efficiency. The Russian soldiers, many of them poorly trained levies, were stunned by the ferocity and speed of the attack. Their lines, stretched thin over kilometers, were pierced in multiple places. The Swedish soldiers were a blur of blue and steel, their disciplined formations cutting through the disorganized Russian masses. Panic, once it started, became an unstoppable contagion. The Russian center disintegrated. Seeing their lines break, soldiers threw down their weapons and fled. The retreat turned into a mad, desperate scramble for the only escape route, the Kamperholm bridge spanning the Narva River. A tide of terrified men surged onto the wooden structure. Under the immense weight of the panicked mob, the bridge groaned, splintered, and then collapsed, sending hundreds of men into the icy, churning waters below. The disaster on the bridge sealed the fate of the Russian army. With their escape route cut off, entire regiments found themselves trapped, their command structure shattered. Duke de Croix and his foreign officers, unable to restore order, surrendered to the Swedes to save their own lives. As the blizzard subsided, the scale of the victory became clear. An army of 8,000 had utterly shattered a force of 40,000. The ground was littered with captured cannons, standards, and supplies. It was a victory so total, so improbable, that it stunned all of Europe. King Charles XII was hailed as the new Alexander, a military genius of the highest order. But in this moment of absolute triumph lay the seeds of ultimate defeat. For Tsar Peter, the humiliation at Narva was not an end, but a brutal, essential lesson. He famously remarked, "The Swedes will teach us how to beat them." He initiated sweeping reforms, modernizing his army, building a new officer corps, and forging a military machine that would learn from its mistakes. The victory at Narva gave Sweden a decade of dominance, but it also awakened the Russian bear from its slumber. Looking back, the Battle of Narva stands as a testament to the unpredictable nature of warfare, where courage, leadership, and even the weather can overturn the certainty of numbers. It was a flawless tactical masterpiece that cemented the legend of Charles XII and his Caroleans. Yet, it also bred a dangerous overconfidence in the young king, leading him deeper into the vastness of Russia toward his eventual reckoning at Poltava 9 years later. The stunning victory at Narva, won in the heart of a blizzard, was a glorious chapter in the history of the Swedish Empire, but it was also the beginning of the end. It was the victory that ultimately doomed Sweden. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more tales from history. Your support helps us bring these incredible moments to life. We'll see you in the next one.